Hello, welcome to another book club. This week we are talking about Melt It, the book of the Iceman, and I am honoured and delighted to meet someone who is a living, as we speak, legend, Anthony Irvine, who is the Iceman himself. The book is also written by Robert Ringham with a couple of contributions from Simon Munnery and Stuart Lee. Hello, Anthony. How are you doing?
Hello.
It's very great to meet you. You have a block of ice,
A baby block.
a little baby block, which will maybe
Ice cap.
Very good. Very good. It's on his head for audio listeners. There will be some puns, I think, today. There will be some ice. There will be some melting. You have cropped up a few times in passing in the Leicester Square Theatre podcast, where we've been talking about the 1980s alternative comedy circuit, which you are a very memorable part of. Do you want to describe, from your point of view, what your act was and is still?
Well, basically, I would arrive in a public setting with a block of ice, different sizes, and I would erect a platform upon which to put the block of ice. Then I would proceed to attempt to melt it, but not very successfully. So the block was always there at the end.
Okay.
So defeat and failure stared me in the face every time.
Yes.
But as our friend Simon Munnery said, we all know the block will melt eventually anyway.
Yes.
So it's sort of, in a way, it's plucking success from the jaws of defeat.
It is. Well, I love this sort of stuff. I will talk a bit later about some similar things I do. But it's the point. It's the pointlessness of trying to do something, but there's a sort of honour within the attempt. There's pointless. Everything's pointless, Anthony. Life is pointless, and
Yeah.
everything we do in between life, birth, and death is
Well,
pointless. But it's the attempt.
Can I question you there?
Yes.
Because I think, in a strange sort of way, it's not pointless. If you see what I mean.
Well, yeah.
I think it does have some kind of effect on myself, on the audience, and on the world,
Yes.
without being too presumptuous. So I've often thought about this. Is it pointless? It seems to be pointless, but I think it has a point.
Okay, I do concur. I was talking broadly speaking. I mean, you
Yes.
tried to melt it in sort of amusing ways, blowing on it, and it gets sort of more crazy from there, really, doesn't it? Just
Yes, the early blocks were very primitive and pure, I always think, and looking back at it. But then, in order to be shared with the public, I had to sort of get bookings, and then I had to start compromising, and I tried to give it an element of entertainment. But I always used to say the entertainment is very much a byproduct of the serious business of melting ice.
okay.
So, but it's true. I in order to share it, other than on the street, I had to sort of put a bits of stuff in it to make it more engaging.
Yes. I mean, it's sort of the archetypal. It's the act that I think most people who were around in the 80s talk about as exemplifying the spirit of alternative comedy. You weren't the only person doing what I think would be correctly termed performance art as much as comedy. There was jokes and there was funny things in it, but it was there to make you contemplate existence and ice and melting, and made you think about more than I suppose just someone doing gags. But yeah, you've come to be this. As I said, we talked before the podcast, and I couldn't remember if I'd actually seen you or if I'd just heard about you so much that I felt that I'd seen you. I think I did see you, but I'm sure we will have shared bills. But you're such a legend that I can't even trust my own memories about you.
Yes, you're very kind. As the Elephant Man said, you're very kind. The thing is, you're kind to call me a legend. I think the legend resulted partly from me disappearing for 4 decades.
Yeah.
and now people can't quite place me, I suppose.
Yeah. Why did you stop performing on the circuit? Was it your choice, or was it the choice of the clubs, which did become a little more based on commerce, I suppose, rather than art, as things progressed through the 90s?
I like to think it was my choice.
Yeah.
I had things to do.
Yeah. Well, that's good, because you are,
So I
as
think
the book shows. So the book is an interview between you and Robert Ringham mainly, but it also showcases your art, which is, it's a beautiful book, and it's great. Again, a lot of it encompasses the Iceman and the things you did. You used to take a Polaroid of every block of ice and number them, and you kept them but lost some of them, those Polaroids, right?
yes, I lost the majority, but in a way, it makes the survivors more special.
Yes.
And you mentioned Rob Ringham. I have to credit this gentleman because he approached me sort of out of the blue, really, and I think he sort of had the know-how to do things and complete a job, whereas I'm quite good at starting and then delegating, like the block, really.
Yeah.
So, and his team of Ryan Vance and Finn Bush and thank you to Chris Evans, of course, who had the faith to invest in it. So I sort of met a team, and I've always been rather solitary. So I think it was quite helpful meeting a bit of a team. Well, I'm glad you mentioned the Polaroids because the fact that there are some Polaroids which are very limited quality uh, sort of play with that idea of permanence and impermanence.
Yeah.
And also the paintings, of course, I'm very moved by myself. And I'm glad that a few of those appear in the book.
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful thing, and exactly as you say, it's sort of because as well, the Polaroid is such I mean, photographs aren't very permanent anyway, but the Polaroid is such an impermanent way of taking a photograph, in that the picture will fade over time. Which yes, here we go. So there's some amazing pictures in there,
Thank you.
and it's it sort of it absolutely adds to it that you've lost some of them. There's some of them maybe there to be discovered in a box somewhere, maybe in an attic. I don't know, but
Yes, I think, as you know, perhaps I used to have an old fax machine and I used to copy the picture
yeah,
straight away on the fax machine. Then, on very sort of low grade fax paper, I used to sign it and deliver it to the audience. And quite a few people wanted them, it appeared. So I'm hoping there's a lot of fax copies out there somewhere that perhaps even due to this event may come back.
yeah. But the fax as well is probably the least permanent of
Yes,
any written record, in that the fax will also fade. So it's like the blocks continue
yes,
to melt in whatever medium. Maybe
yes,
the paintings will hopefully survive.
yes. The blocks live on and the blocks will return. And the paintings will probably be in the Tate Modern, I should imagine.
Well, I would absolutely hope so. Was your intention, as that we're saying, the duck now, which is also features in the book and in the act, was you are kind of uh, heralded as this artistic act who wasn't interested in fame or money, but I mean, you did have some TV appearances, and things did sort of progress, and you're an actor as well, and you've acted in films and TV and adverts. Was that the choice of you? Would you have liked this act to become sort of top of the bill at the Palladium, or was it important to you that it stayed? I mean, it's different every time, and it stayed in clubs, but occasionally out into the real world, and occasionally in
Yes.
foyers. But was that choice yours, or was it foisted upon you to be this uh, underground legend rather than top of the bill performer?
Um, top of the bill before. Uh, yes, I took advantage of any opportunity to share a block of ice. So
Yeah,
it, I think, as Stuart Lee said, I had no career plan, and it just sort of happenstance, really.
yeah,
But I always had faith that it was, as Simon Munnery kindly put in his introduction, absurd, beautiful art, I think his phrase was. I
yeah.
think Stuart Lee's phrase was, the Iceman is a blank canvas. So I think the combination of those two phrases really sums me up. And I can
And
go now.
well, it's. I mean, those are two of the obviously most respected comedians on the circuit. So it's fantastic. They both play. Stuart's a bit sniffy about the puns in the act, though. I think the sort of the deadening nature of the puns and the inappropriateness of them in a way in a work of art like this
Yes,
transcends them beyond mere puns to something more beautiful as well.
yes. I noticed Stuart Lee in his afterwards said he
Yeah.
didn't really appreciate the puns, and I sort of agree with him, which is why I like the purely visual early blocks.
Yes.
But on the other hand, I think the puns are
Yes.
pathetice, and therefore it emphasizes the pathos. But
Yes.
I did put
I
a
agree with that.
few actual jokes in that I wrote myself.
That's the beauty, and you do talk about your forays into TV. You worked with Chris Tarrant on TV, who did not enjoy the act by the looks of it.
Yes, I'm not sure I worked with him. I sort of worked against him, really. He thought it was very bad. I think I
Yes.
annoyed him. I think I wasn't ready for a shot or something.
Okay. He,
I
he
annoyed
said
him.
he said the act is shit is what he said, hadn't he? As you quote
Yes, well,
amongst your many brilliant quotes.
he is quite a perceptive person.
And you also, I didn't know this, but you worked with You were on the Noel Edmonds show with Mike Smith as well.
At Christmas, yes, I came out of
Yeah.
an exploding fridge. I quite like that. I think there's a film of it somewhere.
Yeah.
And also, I utilised the fridge door to make an entrance into clubs. If there was any sense of hostility, I would come in with this huge sort of fridge door in front of me, like a shield,
Yeah.
and that put the audience on the defensive.
And how did it go down? You were obviously at every performance. Many of us saw one or two or a few performances, and what was enjoyable was it was unpredictable and different every time. But from your point of view, it's so bulk because I was doing stand up a little bit maybe at the tail end of when you were doing this, and I was always terrified of the audience, especially at places like the Tunnel or Malcolm Hardy's clubs that you played. Did the audiences go with it, or did the audiences lose patience, or was it different every time?
I think it did vary quite a lot. But you mentioned the Tunnel. They sort of were two extremes, really. They either seemed to almost adore me, if I dare say that. But
Yes.
for some weird reason, a month later, I go back there, and I'd had to sort of run away, basically. No, not
Yes.
the Iceman does run away, but we know what I mean. They would be quite rough and aggressive. So I think it depended how much drink they had, really.
Yeah. I
And
mean, they
if
were
Malcolm,
unpredictable. But
yeah,
was that? I mean, I sort of took joy in the gigs that went badly in those early days, as well as being very sad about them. Was that part of the experience for you, that regardless of what the audience reaction was, you were still doing what you needed to do? So was that part of it for you?
yes, in a sense, I felt reasonably confident as I went on because I knew that it would fail. So I had no, if there was any element of success, that would be a bonus. So
Right.
I sort of went on without really wanting to win the audience over, really with the determination to share my block.
Yeah.
I have a block, I want to melt it, you're here, let's witness it, let's share it. That was the basic philosophy. And also, interestingly, you said that I was always there with my blocks. Sometimes, for example, at Stuart Lee's austerity show, I left the block alone for some
Right.
time and mixed with the audience or went a cup of tea or something. And so the block was being observed by me, but not sort of connected with me. And in fact, some people misunderstood and thought the Iceman was somebody else altogether who took it
Okay.
upon himself to talk about philosophy or something.
Yeah. And you ended up one of them ended, they ended up one of them ended up in the Thames, that's right, isn't it? Was that after one of Stuart Lee's show that you took the block?
Yes, I
Uh,
took it to the sort of embankment bit, and yeah, I just thought it was a nice end for it,
Yeah, definitely.
and I slid it in. Then I felt a bit guilty in case it caused a sort of Titanic incident, but it there's no report of it since. It went to Richmond and then went to Gravesend. Then it went into the North Sea.
Yeah.
Then it went into the universe. I've heard.
It's there somewhere in its
Yeah,
constituent,
that's the
broken
thing.
down, but there is something beautiful about it. That is fabulous. Yeah, I mean,
That's my sound tape.
okay.
Sorry.
That's
I had
okay.
a sort of loop behind
Yeah.
me, and it really was to give a sort of texture to the event.
I can't realize you love me. Just can't realize you love me. I can't realize you love me. Just can't realize you love me. I can't realize you love me. Just can't realize.
Did you
Beautiful.
like that?
I loved. I mean, I loved it. It's lovely to see it, and it's lovely that the act exists.
Did you see the block dancing?
Of course, I saw the whole
Yes.
thing. I couldn't take my eyes off it.
Bamboo was very useful for holding the block up.
So yeah, you made a structure out of bamboo, put the block on the bamboo.
Yeah.
I mean, I realised you and I are very similar, and I don't know if I was influenced by you or not, but I do some slight esoteric podcasts. One of my podcasts is there's a big field that I walk my dog around that's covered in bits of flint, and I'm trying to remove all the bits of flint from the field and put them at the side of the field and make a gigantic wall. So I'm working, and I commentate on this in the podcast as I'm doing it. It's an audio only experience usually, though I've done some videos. So you work in water and I work in rock, but it's a similar. I'm getting a Polaroid taken of me. That's good. It's of the ice.
Yes,
It's a similar thing in that it's about man's place in nature and maybe the
yeah.
futility of attempting anything, but also I'm trying to create something permanent. I suppose I'm trying to create a wall that will signify that I've existed, though it's a fruitless task because obviously it's impossible to achieve. But I'm not going to give up.
I like the sound of that. That's
Yeah.
site-specific art, sort of
Yes.
environmental, like Richard Long and people like that. Yes.
Yeah, it sort of is, except without. I'm not good at art, so mine is just literally putting rocks on top of each other. But there is something about about trying to reorganize nature, or trying,
Yeah.
as a man, as a human, trying to change things and trying to, futilely, I think, trying to show that you were here for the future.
Yes.
Whereas your piece is sort of the opposite. Is sort of about the decay of. Is about decay and things disappearing. Mine's about trying to create permanence, and but both of them are about failure. I think
Yeah.
that's
Yes. I don't want to exaggerate the failure element. I mean, in a way, water obviously is a great symbol of fertility.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you mention decay, obviously there's an element of that, and meditations on death and mortality. But there's also, I think, an idea of hope.
Yes.
And also tackling one's own individual blocks. I see the blocks really as stepping stones to something else, which I've yet to discover what it is. But I feel they've been leading somewhere.
Yeah, I think and it's metamorphosis, I suppose. In your case, it's something changing from
Yes.
one state
Exactly.
to another, and being the same thing, but being. I mean, that is the beauty, the exciting and interesting thing about water is there's those three states of solid, liquid, and gas, and they're all the same thing, and yet they're all different. I mean, if you and I can find somebody who works with gas, we've got all the elements covered, really. So maybe we should, the balloon man, maybe.
Have people notice your rock
A little
changes?
bit. Yes, a little bit. So there's a few larger cairns, and then the others I'm trying to just distribute surreptitiously. I'm doing it all without any permissions. I don't know whether the farmer wants the stones on the field or off the field. I'm not getting many. There's probably 1 billion stones on the field, and I do maybe 100 a month. So I've got a little way to go. But
you'll know when a notice goes up saying, "Please leave the stones alone."
Well, someone decided against it and threw loads of them back on, but I managed to clear most of them off pretty quickly as well.
That's discouraging.
It is, but but again, I felt he was making an artistic statement of his own with my artistic statement, whatever it is. But I think you talk in the book about having gods, and I've sort of there's a religious aspect to mine that I start to believe there are gods dictating where the stones are and who are happy with my work. And I think when you start working in this elemental way, you start to understand how religions begin. And you talk about the blockness one. Is it the block? Is that
the blockless one?
Yeah. Is that your god?
Sort of. I think am trying to remove blocks to improve myself. Really,
Yeah.
that's one element, I should say.
Okay.
I Yes. So the blockless one is, yes, without blocks.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
quite deep, as you know. Audiences used to say "deep, deep" at the end of my performances, at least sometimes.
Well, but it's that perfect combination because it's deep. People can laugh with you. People can laugh at you. They can choose to do that. They can think you're crazy, or that they think what you're doing is a silly
Yes,
thing to do. But then their reaction is also part of it as well. And perhaps they are the fools. You know, they're laughing at what they perceive to be a fool, but maybe they're foolish for not understanding the deeper
yes,
significance. And equally, maybe the people who think it is deep are foolish for thinking it's any deeper than a man melting a block of ice.
yes. I think you're right. That's what I found interesting about the blocks is people. You did get a wide range. I'll join you. A wide range of reactions, but
Yes.
I think quite a few people felt sorry for me, and that was quite nice.
Okay.
Quite emotionally supportive.
Yes. Well, that's good, but it feels like you were always in control of. I think the comedy circuit is such a weird thing because there's a broad spectrum of people people who are very together, people who are pretending to be mad, and people who are mad, and people who are pretending not to be funny, and people who aren't funny. So, and I think especially in the 80s, there was a lot more questioning whether the person in front of you was genuinely mentally ill, or whether they were, whether they were a comedy genius, or whether they were an artistic genius. And so there's all those things are playing around as well. When you're amidst lots of different sorts of acts, as there were in the 80s, it does
Yes.
that also changes. If you came and were performing now, I mean, God, I would love to see it, Anthony, if you would come and be in, a regular comedy club. And there are a few from the old days that still crop up. Chris Lynham still does his incredible, beautiful performance art in comedy clubs. But
Is that with
I
the
don't know
firework?
how. Yeah, but he does lots of he does lots of stuff beyond that as well. And he's a performance artist as well.
I
But
remember he
it's hard
booked
to know
me.
how. Pardon?
He booked me for my biggest gig at the
Did
Rolling
he?
Stones Nebworth,
Oh,
but I
right.
didn't make it onto the stage
Oh,
for
no.
various reasons, which I can't go into detail about.
Okay.
But I'm glad to hear he's still going.
Yeah.
At the Open Heart, I don't know if you ever went to the Open Heart Cabaret by a guy called Tony Green, Gideon Vane, all that.
Yeah, I know the names.
The
I didn't go. I didn't play it.
people
No.
like Ian Hinchcliffe were there,
Yeah.
and I used to enjoy that one because it was very performance art sort of,
Yeah.
orientated, quite edgy, really. So that was one of my
Yes.
favourite places.
Yeah. Well, there was Club Z, which you also performed at, which was a similar thing in the 90s, in that it was trying to, and of course Stuart bringing you back for his other
Yeah,
gigs as well. I enjoyed the
I don't know.
story about you being stopped by the police just after an
Yes,
IRA
that really was
bomb had
completely
gone off.
genuine.
Yes.
Absolutely happened.
We had a little breakdown. I'll just explain what happened. We had a little breakdown in communication there. We're now back. Anthony has a hat on and maybe a little louder.
Yeah.
And there we go. There's a block of ice from the past. I mean, those Polaroids are amazing for just seeing what people in the 1980s looked like as well. The people in
Yeah.
the background and the stars and the audiences. It's kind of eerie, sort of shining quality to it. I
Yeah.
think of looking back at the past. I mean, we were cut off as I was talking about the IRA. I don't know if that was some government interference there to stop us talking about that. You were stopped by the police who were looking for IRA bombers while you had all your ice and lots of equipment in the van.
Yes.
Do you want to tell me about
Fortunately, they didn't look in my boot.
that? Because you had various guns and things for the act,
I
right?
think the thing that would have looked most incriminating was the cables and the explosives.
And did you tell them what you were doing? Did you explain you were a performer, or did you not get that far? They just
Yes, they were. They seemed to be reassured quite quickly. I put on my diplomat hat and was very emollient, and I told them my father was on an IRA death list, which is actually true.
okay. Yeah, your dad was an MP, right? As I read in the book. So how did your family feel about you moving into show business and away from the lives that they would have led?
Um, I think they accepted me for who I am.
Okay.
By the way, can I tell you something about that I'm quite excited about?
Yes, please
I
do.
don't know if you can see this. The Gug.
Yeah.
In July, on July the 7th up to August the 5th, I'm actually having a formal exhibition with actual paintings on a wall in a gallery at a gallery called Goggleton Farm Arts. And
Okay.
it's a farm in Stallbridge near Sherborne. I'm going to be in the pigsty, but it is a formal exhibition. I hope
Great. Oh
you
well,
might possibly come.
I will do my best to come.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will do my
By the
best.
way,
And we'll if
I'm
we if,
quite happy to come with a block from Eskimo Ice to your Leicester Square Theatre. Yeah,
yes, that could be
that
fun.
could be interesting.
That could be fun. Yes, we'll talk about that. So look, the book is called Melt It. It's available, I think, exclusively at gofasterstripe.com, or is it available elsewhere as well? Um,
I've got a horrible
Go
feeling
Fast.
it's going to be successful.
Well, look, it's just as the book talks about. There's a copy in the British Library. It's just great to have your life and this art project and your art
Yeah,
preserved for future generations. You know,
it, it, it's
that's an
basically
amazing thing.
an interview with Rob. And as you can see, I'm not a very good interviewee, but that's the
Anyway,
body of the work is an interview questioning me. But what I like is the photographs of the blocks living on and my own
yes.
paintings appearing, which are based on the performances. So I think they're quite varied, even though they're repetitive in one sense. I think there's a variety there.
There's a lot of there's sort of different styles. I mean, in some ways, it's quite a childlike style for some of them,
Yes,
there's
that's the main
but some of them
criticism I get. People say, "Oh, a child could have done that," but I interpret that as a compliment.
I think it is. Well, I meant it as a compliment, but you know, they asked their recreations of the Polaroids. Some of them very faithful reproductions, and so you know
Yeah.
that's what's lovely about this book is if you're interested in the history of comedy and also the history of art, you get both in this. You've got a coffee table book you can show to people and go, look here, I'm interested in art, and then you can show them just the pictures and explain this incredible story. And it does. Robert's done a fantastic job of ordering this and getting the whole story out, really, because it's, I think, as I say, I saw you as this legendary figure, and I wasn't entirely sure what had been even going on, and I quite liked it for that. But this book does explain, I think, very well your motivations, and also is a, you know, and it's also terrific that you're still being invited into things that something you maybe stopped doing 40 years ago still comes up every now and again.
Yes, it's
You
very
still get
nice.
good block.
It's quite
Yeah,
strange, actually, but it's all very coherent. And funnily enough,
it is.
my local university library ordered a copy of Melt It the other day. It's called the Arts University Bournemouth. So it's reaching a young generation because it's all young students there.
Yeah, well, I hope people will. But Go Fast and Stripe, who I've worked with for a long time, are fantastic in terms of promoting young comedians who might not get lots of coverage elsewhere, and unusual comedians, and getting their work out there. And it's great that they've also moved into doing some books. Robert Ringham's got a few books there that are worth. There's one about
Well,
Club Z, which is well worth reading. There's a couple of, we're talking about reprinting a couple of my old books that were done by Go Faster Stripe as well. So it's, you know, it's nice that these things exist and that fans can find them, and that, you know, I think anyone who's interested in the history of comedy, your of alternative comedy, your name, at least the Iceman's name, will keep cropping up, and this is finally the story
yes, well,
fully
thank you.
explained.
It's very kind of Chris to take such faith in it. We're placing bets on the reprint at the moment, and
Okay,
similarly,
well, I'm sure there will be a
yeah, and the bookies are betting how many paintings I'm going to sell at the Gug Art Farm in July. So there's a lot of bookies
yeah.
benefiting from this.
And can people see your art online as well as the ways to buy your art? Have you got a website?
Yes, I've got a little website. I don't get many visitors. It's quite solitary, lonely, really, but it's called iceblocked.co.uk. And I've also got a sort of more commercial outfit called Saatchi Art or something.
Yeah.
But I've sold a few, but mainly to friends who feel sorry for me.
Oh, well, we'll put links to those in the bio. Well, I think, Van Gogh only sold a couple of paintings in his lifetime, Anthony. So, that's well worth remembering. They're beautiful. They're really interesting. And
Would you like to buy it?
They're I do quite. There was one you showed earlier when we were off that I liked. I mean, I will definitely visit the site and I'll see what I like that one.
Yeah.
So that's you chained your block of ice, is it?
Yes, that's a bit that connects to the theme of what we were talking about earlier. Unblocking,
Yeah.
becoming blockless, lose the chains.
Yes. Yeah. No, well, look, it's terrific stuff, and I hope you will go onwards and upwards, and I hope the art will continue. How's the block of ice doing? Has it melted at all? I mean, it doesn't look much different than at the start, and
it's breathing.
And this podcast has been longer than the people at home will have heard it, so it's still retaining its basic ice shape, and it is breathing back.
I think it was the water from the ice that caused the technical blip.
Well, it's good for the ice to have got involved in that way and to permeate through the technology. Well, hopefully, it won't have destroyed your computer.
It was most appropriate, wasn't it? Really,
it was. Yeah. It's a fact. It's what this is all about. It's about success and failure. We have succeeded and we have failed, and the failure was a success as well.
Yes,
so I'm very happy.
Persistence.
Persistence is very important. I think
you'll need a holiday after this. You're having a holiday.
Luckily, I'm going on holiday. That's so I will take a break.
Norfolk.
And I'm going to Norfolk, and I'll wash myself in ice, and then the next guest will appear, who I think next week's going to be Evie King talking about Ashes to Admin, which is a terrific book, which you should enjoy as well. Do you read a lot, Anthony, yourself? Are you reading anything at the moment you'd like to recommend, or is?
Yeah, I read. I read quite a lot. I'll tell you one book I like.
Yeah. Within reach.
Can you see that?
I can't. Oh, Eugene Delacroix.
Yeah. The
journal.
It's a bit different from my painting, but this is a journal of his life, and it's very interesting reading about his daily life. It says that he never intended it for publication, so I don't know if that's true, but it's a real insight into a fellow artist's mind.
That's great. Terrific. Well, we'll look out for that one. I don't think we'll be able to get him on the podcast. It looks like he may have passed on by now.
Yes.
He looks like quite an ancient artist. I'm not as up on art as I should be, Anthony.
Right.
And so thank you for. I like to create terrible art, but I don't consume a lot of it. Though I was at the National Gallery the other day.
Oh, right.
Which was there's a lot of nice paintings there, but it's it's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting how different artists express themselves, and realism versus ice. So I was trying to think of the best way to describe you. I don't think it's abstract. Realism versus a man doing some paintings of some ice that he's melted in the past.
Yes. So I'm reading the book now.
Which is also real. Well, you carry on reading your book. It's been lovely talking to you. It's been an absolute honour to meet with you, and hopefully we'll see you again at some point. We'll try and check out your art, and we'll put some links to all your stuff up in the podcast.
I've just seen a phrase on the computer just came up. Said "success reconnected."
Good. Well, there we go. We are a success.
Deep.
We're a success. I felt we got disconnected and we reconnected, and it's a beautiful thing.
Say goodbye to the block.
Thank you.
It won't be here forever.
Thank you, the block. It will not. Enjoy your short life, block of ice, unless you go back in a freezer. And thank you so much for joining us. The wonderful Anthony Irvine. Thank you.